meeting, you should have the first look at it before we bring it to the board in general. Once you've had that first look at it, then we can advance it to the board meeting, whatever the date is. June.
No, it would actually be June. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Which may ultimately, while I think we all have a collective sense of urgency around getting this sort of to be what you'd like, it might, sort of fiscal year flips. It's sort of a July 1 is always like a good mark to say, okay, starting July 1, we're going to institute this new thing. The question really that we would offer to you is some of the tools, the one that I just offered you all, that's something you could practically implement outside of policy because that doesn't change your current approach. And so that's something that you may want to discuss as a board. I don't know if that's admin function or otherwise, but there is an opportunity before July 1 that doesn't require policy revision, which is just about managing the sign up, not about changing, not about doing in advance, but you could change your sign up process at any point because that's just a functional change, not a.
Because I think that lends to, I want it to be clear that we're taking a thoughtful approach to this, that we're talking about introducing listening opportunities for folks across the region, that we are not, we're taking into account the perspectives of all. And so
and you're arguably expanding public comment. I would argue you're expanding it because you're not limiting it to, you have to come here to get audience.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say, yes, we come back to policy with what you've been able to glean from all of this conversation in terms of consensus. I will give an update to the full board during our May 3rd meeting of some of the things that we've talked about in the direction that we've given, just so that they're aware of where we stand without having to watch the whole video. And we'll come back. We'll look at it, hopefully pick it to.
We can put a rough draft of a new policy together, presented in June for first reading. Right. Move forward from there.
And the first reading might result in some other things for us to impact policy. So we'll see.
I support all of that. I would welcome any input, Steve, that you have on what we're doing currently, on whether we're within the law, just around, I just, we've done some prioritization of students, whether that, if the board wanted to continue that for these next few months, whether that makes sense, and whether you have any legal advice for the full board on, do we move additional public comments to later in the meeting, or do we have the option to not do that? So that kind of thing, I think the board could use your advice and support on.
Sure, and I'd be happy to meet with the board for a more robust discussion about that during a closed session. I will give the broad statement now that the policy that is currently in place is legal. The practice that we adopted, at least that I saw at the meeting last week, of prioritizing students, I believe is legal. I have zero concern or problem with that approach. For a more in-depth discussion, I think I would reserve that for a closed session conversation.
I love doing this because I don't like the randomness of it all, how we have no structure. And I think we owe that to the community and I like this. I like what we're trying to put together here. Like you said, I would argue we're actually looking at providing more opportunities for people to be heard. And so I like offering that structure. So then people know, like you said, I signed up, I accepted, I can come speak. Maybe I'll get accepted next time, or I can present mine in writing, or I could come to one of the listening sessions. So I think I like how we're giving a lot of opportunities and options for people.
So to be clear, we're suggesting that we come back to the May 17th policy committee meeting with a mock-up of this policy for your review, so that you can, Ms. Gallagher, this is really for you, so that you can present your policy committee update next week. Would you like us to sort of send you some bullets that summarize what we've taken away from today, or Just,
I have some bullets too, and that'll be helpful. We can
Yeah.
compare.
well, just because we want to make sure that we've taken away sort of the clarity. Also, I just want to make sure that we have clarity on our part as staff to be clear about what we've elevated or what we've discussed. Just,
So I think to Mr. Bass's point, the question is, how are we proceeding? Right? We have a bunch of recommendations, we've had pretty lengthy discussions. How we've sort of decided, I think, to operate as a board is like these, like we did last time. We had a consensus agreement prior to the start of the meeting. I prefer not, but for us to come to every meeting and make, which I think I said last time, to make these decisions based on meetings. So is your proposal that we put that on a closed session agenda item prior on our May 3rd
So
meeting so that we can come prepared?
the,
And not that we're changing the sign up or the policy, but that we're prepared to make a decision about how we're collectively moving forward
In the interim.
in the
Right.
interim.
the decision of how you move forward at each individual board meeting until we have finalized this policy, meaning do we continue to prioritize the students? That's something that can be determined in admin function. The conversation with me about what is within the scope of the law and what is not, that goes into a more detailed attorney-client communication, which really should be conducted during closed session.
Are we comfortable with adding it to the closed and then subsequent admin?
For May 3rd?
Can do that. Can you, Dr. Sergo, can you add that to
yeah,
Dr. Dyson's? So she's aware that we would like to add a discussion.
are you talking about for agenda setting?
Yes.
Through closed
I don't know
session,
if we
Alcon will
have-
speak to answer questions about the legalities. And
On, you
then-
want to do that on the 17th?
No, on the 3rd.
On the 3rd, you want to add a closed item?
We would actually have a closed attorney discussion, but we would also then subsequently have an admin function discussion about
Setting the process for that
setting the
day.
process for that day.
I want to say, I would just ask for you to consider, and the answer might be it needs to be a closed session, but for you to just consider, are there items on this that could be discussed in an open session? Because that's my preference. And if you, as legal counsel, really feel this must be in closed session, then I trust your viewpoint on this.
The legal advice I give needs to be in closed session. That is, to do it any other way would break the attorney-client privilege and would potentially open the door for inquiry and discussion about a lot more that's said when we are in closed session. So I would be very hesitant to give legal advice outside of the closed forum. That doesn't mean that the board can't engage in public discussion. It's just that the advice that I give to you is what needs to be maintained in that closed session.
Because I'll just give a sample of what I would provide to Sue, to our President Johnson. I would propose in the interim, we just go back to following the policy that we have, which says 30 minutes for public comment. And at our discretion, we are deciding now, we have decided we are going to allow commenters to comment at the end of the meeting, but not prioritize students, not prioritize anyone. We're just going to follow our policy as it is in the interim while we're doing this work on our policy, because I think it just adds so much
And that's,
doubt and I think it actually adds amicus to the meetings,
Well,
that we come to a meeting and suddenly we're dictating.
Well, so I
It's
think,
not in our policy and not,
Yeah,
let's
so
just
I-
take our 30 minutes. And
right.
if you want to stay later and speak in the interim, we're working on this for the benefit of all. But in the interim, we're going to stick to our 30 minutes. And then if you want to stay and comment at the end of the meeting, you are welcome to do so. That would be my recommendation.
And that's certainly, a legal recommendation. There's nothing illegal about that proposal. It's something that can be decided during the admin function portion of the workday. That doesn't need to be decided during, it should be decided in advance, and the admin function is the place to do that.
And I think that sort of is the crux of where you're trying to reconcile is how the notion of discretion is being applied. The argument some have made is that it changes meeting to meeting. And so I think what the board would need to do, and this is your point about offering counsel, is decide in advance how you're going to apply the discretion. And so if you can be clear as a board at the start of the meeting what that discretionary period is going to look like, if it will occur and when it will occur, that I think will give you some of the structure you're looking for.
So we'll do that. We'll have
Yeah.
our discussion for closed session and admin function on the 3rd.
Okay, I'll make a. What you want to close session? Gotcha.
So if there's nothing, and we're at 12:20, so I want to be mindful of that 12:30, stop time. If there's nothing else, then we can move to 1.14 on the agenda, which is adjournment.
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
Thank you.
Great.
thank you all.
Thank you.